Hello and welcome to MediaNama. On April 20th, US President Joe Biden signed into law the Reforming Intelligence and Securing America Act. The legislation reauthorizes Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, extending it until April 2025. The law allows the US government to conduct surveillance on non American citizens by compelling US businesses in the field of communication to share information on people they believe to be foreign adversaries. Recent amendments in the bill have garnered some controversy, particularly the expansion of the scope of businesses that are compelled to share information with the US government. Experts say that these businesses could include data centers and commercial landlords that operate businesses like news publications. Additionally, there are concerns about the lack of warrants for intelligence agencies such as the FBI, since there have been document cases of abuse by the FBI. We're here with MediaNama founder and editor Nikhil Pahwa to discuss the implications of this act. Hi, Nikhil.
Hi, Simon.
All right. So now that RISAA has been extended, what implications will this have on the privacy of Indian citizens?
So essentially, from an Indian citizen's perspective, it means increased surveillance risks because, Indian citizens have been using services like Google, Facebook, Amazon, and, particularly initially it was just about messaging and communication services, but this has now been expanded to data centers as well. So it means that personal data transmitted through these platforms could potentially be intercepted, most importantly, without a warrant, which raises significant privacy concerns. Um, Also, there are data centers in the US and Indians use many US-based services, and that data is stored typically in data centers in the US by these services. So they can now be subjected to surveillance. The fact that the US has renewed this act, it means that, the data of Indian citizens that are using email, messaging, and other communication services from US companies that can be subjected to surveillance. Importantly, it doesn't include services that have end-to-end encryption. So I think there is scope to give preference to services that are either not in the US or that have got into an encryption, especially if you're doing sensitive work. Um, so the other thing is that I think there's a clear clash with India's data protection bill, given that the data of the Indian citizens here can be accessed without warrant requirements and without the consent of Indian citizens. Uh, Unfortunately, this means that we should basically mistrust US service providers, particularly those who are known to comply with the US surveillance laws that are major tech and cloud service providers. Then there is also, in terms of cloud in particular, I think given the expanded scope, I think Indian businesses should also reconsider the use of US cloud services and technology products because this could basically, unless they're storing the data in jurisdictions that have stronger data protection laws. The US doesn't even have a data protection law till now. And I think it's important to remember that India's data protection law doesn't prevent the storage of data of Indian citizens in US data centers. But let's not forget that in case of China, where under China's cybersecurity law and national intelligence law, Chinese government companies can be asked to give data of citizens of any country, any with data anywhere in the world, and extraterritorially and essentially act as extensions of the state. I think it's the same thing that's happening here in the US. So, for reasons of national security, then just like India should blacklist uh, China for data storage and make it illegal for data to be sent to China, I don't see why the same shouldn't apply to the US. The EU has already, faced the Schrems case, which was about the data of EU citizens being sent or being stored in the US. So there are data restrictions because of US surveillance. That's what the Snowden revelations had provided. I think something similar might need to happen in India, where perhaps Indian civil society should go to court because under law now their data can be surveilled in US and probably extraterritorially by US companies as well.
So what do you think the Indian government's response should be to this?
I think firstly, Indian government officials need to stop using US-based email services or US-based cloud services. So often we see Gmail and Yahoo email addresses for Indian government officials and politicians. And we have did no transparency and accountability from these platforms regarding US government surveillance on these emails even, right? Um, I don't think there has been a shift to NIC for email for many Indian politicians, and quite often those mails even bounce. I don't think NIC has the capacity or the capability to handle, heavy duty email and provide that kind of service that some of the US services can. But I think Indian officials should need to stop using US email services. The other thing is that I think we need to regulate, and I don't say this lightly, and I'm not very happy about this. But given that it seems that the scope of the surveillance has been expanded to cloud services, I think it's important to ensure that data of Indian citizens is not stored in US or China in data centers. And perhaps, under the data protection bill, we have to, like I said, have blacklists. I think the Indian government should consider uh, restricting data transfers to US data centers in particular. Implementing data localization is not something I support, but I think we need to ensure, given this particular law, that data is not stored in US or China. I think it's also important for Indian businesses and the Indian government to review and possibly uh, look at their contracts with US providers to include clauses that protect against surveillance. Um, uh, so that perhaps under contract they're not allowed to provide that data. I think this is something that lawyers should address, but I think it's important to sort of give preference to Indian cloud service providers over those like Microsoft. Um, it's not like I said, it's not something that I wouldn't want to restrict data transfers to another democratic country. I wouldn't want preventing another companies from another democratic country to uh, be allowed to operate in India. Just like I think Indian companies should be allowed to operate anywhere in the world. But you can't use this to enable surveillance, right? I think that's a big problem.
So how do you think this will affect multinational American companies?
As of now, I don't think it'll have any significant impact immediately. Um, but because I don't think Indian companies and Indian government are really looking into this right now. We're in the midst of elections. But I do see that post-elections, there will be a need for cloud regulation. I think there will be a need for perhaps looking at the data protection bill, data protection act, and seeing how that can be made applicable to these companies. It is applicable to the companies operating here, but how it can be made to prevent data transfers to other jurisdictions. Um, uh, I, I think there needs to be a push, and it should probably also mean that American companies might eventually lose contracts with the Indian government, uh, you know, especially when it comes to providing cloud services. But if that's what the law in the US enables, then that's what should be prevented. Frankly, I think these companies should go to court against their government in the US to challenge such surveillance laws um, because they do and they should impact their business in other jurisdictions. But I, I'm not sure about how else it will impact them. But effectively, they will be doing surveillance for their government on their customers. And I don't think that's a good situation.
Thank you, Nikhil. For our viewers, if you're interested in learning more about this and tech policy developments in general, please check out our website, medianama.com, and check out our YouTube channel for more such quick takes. Thank you.